Hi, I'm Zach Needles, editor-in-chief of Family Business Magazine. In part one of my conversation with Mitchell Kaneff, the third-generation chairman and CEO of premium packaging company Arkay, and his sons Josh and Max, we discussed the evolution of the company and its approach to succession. Hi, Mitchell, Josh, Max, thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here, Zach.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited to hear your story and sort of your experience, across two generations of a family business. I mean, that's what we're so interested in talking about here is how the different generations approach things. But let's start with the sort of the history of the business. So Arkay is now 104 years old, fourth generation family business. Mitchell, could you start by telling me a little bit about the story of how Arkay began and how the company evolved across generations?
Sure. It all started with my incredibly brave grandfather, Max Kaneff, who came over from the Ukraine, Odessa, as an orphan. He had learned the printing craft by a printing foreman who took him in. So basically, I envision it as a guy say, listen, I'll take care of you, but you're going to have to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
The culture started at a very young age. I believe he was 13 when he was taken in, maybe as young as 8, and started working in the factory. And with that skill set, it took him all over the world. He ended up traveling through Shanghai, working as a pressman there, getting on a boat outside of I think it was out of Tokyo on the USS Yokohama, and he went underneath the captain's bed and stowed away till Vancouver. Through that, he jumped on a train, went to Montreal, was a printer in Montreal for a few years, and then said, my goal is to get to America. And instead of coming through Ellis Island, he just took a train down from Montreal into the Lower East Side of New York and, started RK Printing Company in 1922. At that point, he had quite the skill, quite the talent. He was known as the printer's printer amongst the printing industry that had formed on the lower, I guess it was not the East Side, it was sort of Hudson Street. So you had Varick and Hudson Street, where a lot of printers were building their businesses. And today they actually call them the printer's house, which would be a place where a luxury high-rise or luxury apartment would be in. But I digress. Anyway, from there, made it through the Depression and through a lot of the earlier difficult times of the 30s and in the 40s. And my father came in the business in the 1950s. He saw packaging as a great niche and an opportunity. He specifically went after Elizabeth Arden, Estee Lauder, Charles Revson from Revlon, Helena Rubinstein, and said, hey, this value-added printing on top of adding a bronzing, letterpress, embossing, and soon to be stamping would be an exciting opportunity. And then, basically had an incredible run through the 60s into the 70s. And, we built out of New York City out in Hauppauge, New York, had facility out there up until 2009. And I came in the business in 1989 out of RIT, studying printing management and sciences. And we specialize in folding cartons. We also do setup boxes. We have been basically in the transitioned out of Long Island due to the high costs of manufacturing here and in the state to Roanoke, Virginia in the mid 90s. And we doubled the size of our facility in 2008 during the Great Recession and moved our entire footprint down there. The three of us are currently sitting actually in Long Island in Hauppauge, which is our design center. So we have a lot of expertise and technical aspects to our business that rely on structural engineering, structural design, color matching, and sort of manipulation of files through color management and separation. So that's all done here, and we can get into that later, but that's what we do. We ship globally around the world. We've got a partner in Germany that's also a family-owned business, and I'm just super excited the boys have joined, and I'll let them tell their story. I don't want to talk too much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that was going to be my next question. I love to ask about this because it seems like it's evenly split. There are people who grow up in the family business. They kind of always know that's what they want to do. There are people who people who grow up in the family business, they know it's never what they want to do. And then there's people who kind of don't pay that much attention to it growing up, but then eventually find their way back to it. So, Josh, let me start with you. How did you come to get involved in the business and what was your experience with
Yeah,
it growing up?
Yeah, at a very young age, I think my dad exposed us a lot to the business, especially after work every single day, showing us samples we just produced, new businesses we just got awarded, new enhancements we are adding to our packaging. So I think from a very young age, we really understood the concepts of folding carton, printing, packaging. So that was really informative, and he was being strategic there, which I respect him for that. Um, Again, like I think growing up, you don't really think so much about joining the business. You kind of want to just go high school,
Yeah.
college. And then when I graduated around 3 years ago, I think I got right into the business. I didn't work anywhere else. I wanted to get my hands dirty and really learn the ins and outs of the company. And I first started in the estimating department, really understanding every single financial part of the process when it comes to the equipment, the make ready times, the board materials, the each enhancement. So hot stamping, cold foil, special colors for color process, really understanding what goes in to the pricing. I did that for about a year and then I got into sales, and I think it was kind of a match made in heaven. I love meeting with new customers, new brands, new industries. My goal with sales is to try to meet someone new every single week. And I think I've been doing that. And again, it's not just about the close, it's about really expanding my network and even connecting people in the industry so they can grow their networks as well. So I think it's been an incredible journey so far, and I can't wait for decades to come. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And then Max, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm more recently joined the business about 6 months ago. But yeah, growing up, we've always were kind of exposed to the business, going to Roanoke, going to the facility, meeting everyone. I think my dad was always kind of selling us from a young age because he's always been a salesman. But yeah, we worked on the factory floor a couple summers, so it was always in our life, but wasn't kind of like my main trajectory throughout college. I did various internships, kind of unrelated, and then I ended up getting a job my senior year in consulting. But what really drew me to my family business, I think, was my senior year of college. I was in a family business course. So it was a bunch of people like me who are in family businesses. And I remember my professor would just kind of explain work life as a bell curve and, just kind of doing that 9 to 5 consulting or banking job. You're kind of in the middle of the bell curve, but how do you get, to that 99 percentile and get ahead? And I kind of ignited a fire in me. And even though I started my first role outside of the organization, I think it had many pros being at a very structured consulting job. But I knew that after a year that I was always meant to work at Arkay, and it was a matter of what in Arkay I was going to do. And yeah, so I'm now more in the purchasing department and operations, kind of doing something different than Josh, and we've kind of complemented each other well, and doing different things and learning from each other. And yeah, so that brings me here. So
Yeah.
looking
Awesome.
forward to the future.
Awesome. And Mitchell, you mentioned, when you joined the family business. Well, what was your path like into the family business? How does it kind
Well,
of differ from your boys?
well, my boys were much better scholastically than I was, and I had a very limited choice of where I was going to school. And between the two of them, graduating from USC and Tulane and in business schools, all with great grades and making it through in 4 years, I was at RIT. For those that don't know about that school, it was the best printing industry, the printing university in the world, which was Rochester Institute of Technology. But really, after digital started coming into play, a lot of printers and commercial printers had been decimated by the lack of that work. In any event, before I graduated college, I was all excited. I knew that I was going to go into the business. I had a much more domineering father, I would say, probably in suggesting that this was my path. I was also a musician. I'm still a musician, and I have a band, and I continue to write and record music. But I
Awesome.
saw that as not something that was going to put food on the table for a family unless I was a touring musician 365, and I just didn't want to be on the road all the time to make
Yeah.
a living. So anyway, I digress. But yeah, I had 3 job offers to go work out in Germany. One at a dye manufacturer, one at a competitor at that time was willing to take me into the shop, and I was ready to go learn German in Heidelberg. And that all kind of just came to a screeching halt because we had just gone to war in 1990. It was the Kuwait War at that Desert Storm, I believe was the name of it at that point. And the company had just invested so much money in new equipment that we were highly leveraged and sales evaporated. So like
Mm.
Josh, I said to my dad, who seemed to be struggling, a man that never seemed to struggle, I said, "What do you need, Dad?" And he said, "We need sales right now." And so I couldn't picture myself just getting on a plane and going, "Good luck." So I
Right.
said, so he basically did what his dad did, was throw a suitcase at him and say, "Go sell." And again, for me, it was the greatest thing because I've always loved that. Because I figured if, don't look over here, don't look over here, what I don't know, buy my product. But no, seriously,
Yeah.
as a young age, that's how I got through school, which was a charm, not my scholastic ability. And then I really started, you know, getting my master's, as I chatted with the boys about, as soon as I got out of college. So everything I've actually learned, from psychology to management to, my thirst for information, was like because I wanted to learn it, not because somebody said you need to learn this, and I'd
Yeah.
go like, yeah, but that's boring, and then I wouldn't do it. So yeah, so that was my path. It was similar to Josh's, but I think Max brings a lot, having worked at KPMG, to the table by saying, take a look at this and that. And truthfully, we're tightening up our SOPs and what we're doing internally. And I think a lot of that has to do with focus that he's also brought by coming back to us.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I would love to pivot and just talk about music for an hour, because that's because that's definitely my thing too. But we'll have to save that for a different podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. What I also wanted to kind of get a handle on, and this is kind of a nuts and bolts question, but are there other family members that are involved in the business, like either as shareholders and or employees, or is it you three are the kind of the core?
You're looking
So
at them.
All
yeah,
right.
this is it. This is the
Okay.
board of directors.
Excellent.
So the boys own a couple of shares in the business each. I do, and it's just an estate planning thing, looking at next steps. We also own a little bit of real estate, and so it's an opportunity to kind of, I really enjoy the process of business, and I've also enjoyed becoming the best teacher I possibly can by those incredible people that I've been surrounded with and I learn from, and then sharing that with my boys, and then having these conversations has been the most rewarding so far for me personally, as they join the business.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sitting here basically with the family council, right, as it were. But in terms of the business, does the business have a board of directors
We
as
have a
well,
board
or
of we have a board of advisors. It's a little different
advisors?
than
Okay,
different, and
sure.
that's in flux at the moment. Currently,
Okay,
I'll be leaning more on Max and Josh for new members based on what they see and what they desire as we decide. I mean, I have an opportunity coming up with some business that could be of interest, and then the question goes, how much either debt do we want? Is that an industry we're interested in? And then those could be great ideas and thoughts to bring back to a board. And we were having them a couple of times a year as they were leaving school. They'd come in actually for the board meetings. But I think that's something that we'll be getting
Yeah.
back to in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And I think the last time we had a board meeting, AI was even on the plate. So I think just finding more strategic partners that really understand technology and different industries and how they can leverage Arkay to 10x and not just
yeah.
use the same people we've been working with in the past.
Yeah, that's huge. Absolutely. And that's something we've been hearing from a lot of family businesses
Yeah.
is even ones that have boards in place are saying we need to make sure we have people who understand this stuff at a
Yeah.
granular level so they can help us. And so, Mitchell, you stepped into the CEO role in 1997, if I'm correct?
96, 96.
96. Okay. And so what was that succession process like for you? Like, what were some of the biggest
Painful.
challenges? Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. What were some of the biggest pain points in that transition?
You had multiple buckets, I like to call. You had dad's team that were there. You had people that already were openly like saying, "You're just the SOB, son of the boss." So
Yep.
disrespect, no respect. Then you had the people that you were like trying to find out if they were on your team. And then you had a lot of difficult decisions to make. I think the hardest thing really was, it was my dad's baby. My grandfather started it. He really built it into the reputation and kind of known globally that the company had been. And I think the challenge is now he had a partner.
Yeah.
He had a
Yeah.
partner on paper. He always planned this, but I don't think it took 7 years, Zach, to the point where I would be calling my mom all the time and being like, I don't know what to do,
Yeah.
and I would have 4 meetings with my Young Presence organization and just struggle with it. So listen, he was my best friend. I miss him every day. I don't want to get emotional talking about him, but it's like, doesn't matter. All like the gloves were off. We were in the ring. It's like, either you're going to step up and you're going to prove that you deserve this and should be doing this, or you don't. So basically I had to fire him. And at the end, he hugged me and said, I'm proud of you and you're ready. And I was like, but I didn't want to see you leave, but
Right.
I couldn't work with you anymore because always use my favorite analogies. Here's a sandbox. There's rules by the sandbox. We all agree on this. Now let's go play in the sandbox. As soon as I leave the sandbox, he would like all hell would break loose. And
Yeah.
someone said this to me once. I thought was he had seagull management. He would just fly in, he would drop his shit, and then he would leave.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell just happened? So I don't want to do that to you guys. And if I do, please say seagull.
I love it. And I love that analogy. I've heard that one before, and it's perfect. It perfectly describes so many family businesses. And Max, I'll start with you, and then I'll ask you the same question, Josh. But like, what has surprised you most about working with your dad in a professional setting? Compared to maybe what you've heard about your grandfather, or like compared to what you might have expected just kind of growing up around the business.
I think you learn from your parents' mistakes. I don't know if mistake's the right word there, but I didn't realize how much of our opinions our dad would value and kind of give us that spotlight when we want it, and kind of just letting us try it out without micromanaging us. And I think I've really appreciated that, just letting us make mistakes, letting us go after what we want to do. And obviously he comes in there with some guidance and with some, advice, but I think that sort of lenience and that the opposite of I don't know the opposite of seagull management, but the stories that
Yeah.
I've heard, and having to 7 years and firing your father. I mean, I can't imagine a world where that would happen here. Maybe, I don't know, but I don't see that happening. So I guess
Yeah.
that really surprised me. It's not that I wasn't expecting that at all, but yeah, that's kind of what I guess surprised me so far. I mean, it's all still very new, not even a year in yet, but I've
Just wait.
appreciated yeah, like maybe that 1 year mark. No, but yeah, it's been psych. No, but it's been good. Yeah.
Josh, you've been here a little bit
Yeah,
longer, so
yeah,
what do you
it's
think?
been honestly a pleasure working with him. I think the word respect, I think we respect each other a lot. I think when you work hard and you have a passion for the business, I think our communication and our level of interest is keen. And I think just having dialogues and conversations about stuff I'm going through with my current customers and new customers is super interesting and awesome, talking to your dad about it and not like a boss. And I think that's so interesting that we're able to be in this world and be able to work with my dad and my brother is super rare. And it's great that we can have that dialogue of like what's not working, what's working, and we can really have great conversations over dinner, in the office, outside the office, of how we can be better as a company, how can we expand, what's going right, what's going wrong, and really getting really deep of what can do better. So I think that is pretty special, that we can really be honest and open to each other, personal and obviously work life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Mitchell, what did you learn from your dad during that succession journey? Either, the good and the bad, what not to do and also what to
Oh, I
do.
mean, he was an innovator, and he was one of the most courageous, fearless, um, uh, confident man I'd ever met in my life. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
he was always a superhero. So at a young age, I gravitated towards Batman because in a way I saw him as like this larger than life. He was short, but he would stand up to like some 6'4" guy and like like, I'm going to take you down in one swing, but not
Yeah.
violent, just like his
Yeah.
smile was radiant. I mean, he
Yeah.
was always an optimist. He was so endlessly curious about the future and about technology and about what we could be doing better. And like, it was like, I felt like I was always in class with my dad. And
Yeah.
it was intimidating because it was like, it was got to the point too where I was like, I kind of wanted my dad sometimes and I loved him to death, but it was so business that at one point when I was teaching the boys how to swim on a Saturday and he's just going off on the business, I'm like, Dad, I just need this afternoon just to like help the boys learn how to swim. And
Yeah.
I loved it. And don't get me wrong, I miss that
Yeah.
picking up the phone and just telling them something I'm excited about, I'm scared about. So having that consigliere, which is what I loved because
Mhm.
I love The Godfather,
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope we, like he said, even to the boys when he was alive, I hope you have a relationship that I had with your father that you have, because it really is when it's special, it's special. I think the only thing I would just say it's there's nothing ever negative about him. He was obstinate. And
Yeah.
when he got stubborn, I don't care. You'd have to just back off and he'll either come around and go, you were right. But if you try to get him in a corner, oh my God, it's like,
Yeah.
forget it. The vein in the top of his head would start popping out, old school slamming the head on the hand on the desk. And it was
Right.
intimidating. And in the beginning, I think the biggest lesson I learned was I had to change my my leadership skills because I started becoming my dad.
Yeah.
And meaning I thought that was a good thing. And then people didn't want to give me bad news because we had a lot of it in the early days
Yeah.
because they didn't want to hear the wrath of Mitch.
Yeah.
And I get that. And so I was like, whoa, it was like such a wake up call. So I think, we all have to take care of our families. We're all trying to get by and the world is crazy. So it's like deep empathy is I think probably the best thing my dad ever gave me on top of just, you know, his love of what he did emanated so much so that like you just wanted to be around it more because
Yeah.
he was so excited about it. And
Yeah.
thinking about it makes me, miss him so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a beautiful thing, this story about how he gave you a hug and said, "You're ready." Because when somebody is that confident and they're like, "I know what I'm doing, like, I've taken this business to new heights," to be able to actually take a step back and say, like, "I'm ready to pass, I'm ready to give this to my son." And obviously it went down in kind of a difficult way with the firing and everything, and he was still able to say, like, "You're ready to take this mantle from me." Some people never admit that there's somebody else who can take over, right?
Yeah, the ego thing is
Yeah.
huge. And for me, the thing that was the greatest gift is that my mom ended up getting early onset Alzheimer's. And there was this window of like 4 years that they traveled around the world together.
Wow.
And he thanked me every day. He's like, thank you so much for giving me this time. And then she got it. So it was like while she was healthy, he's like, thank you.
Wow.
So I feel grateful that that was able to happen.